What audio issues are you having?
I just asked Kev to check it. He said that there was no audio. So I just closed it and restarted it.
Okay. I'm recording.
Okay, so we're good to go.
Just give her 1 second. She's resetting that. Do what? Nope. Good? With all your
Good evening, and welcome to the August 8th Board of Aldermen meeting. I now call this meeting in order. It's been a little while since we had a meeting. It's good to see everybody. I would ask everyone to rise and join in the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Chief Gavin, what we're going to do is go through a few procedural things, and then we will get to your part of the program. I would ask the city clerk for a roll call for attendance.
Alderman Allen? Here. Alderman Francisco? Here. Alderman Holman?
Here.
Alderman Hughes?
Here.
Alderman Mortland?
Here.
Alderman Perot?
Here.
And Alderman Weezahan.
Here.
I have Alderman Even as absent. Mayor Reem is presiding, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. First item, minutes from the 7/11 meeting. Seek a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion or amendment?
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm gonna abstain because I was not in attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Next, minutes from the 7/25/22 fax meeting where I believe we received the warrant list via email. Seek a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there any citizens wishing to speak tonight that we're aware of?
I have had none sign up for this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Next, a couple of public hearings. Number one, a public hearing to review a request from Danielle and Keith Tope, owners, for approval of a conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a pool house, to be located at 15 Clayton Hills Lane in the suburban estate zone district. I now declare the public hearing open and would ask the city clerk to enter exhibits.
Exhibit number 1 is affidavit of publication of notice of hearing, published in the St. Louis County on July 22nd, 2022. Exhibit number 2 is typewritten notice of hearing, posted at the municipal center, on the city's website, on the subject property, and mailed to property owners within 300 feet of that property, with a list of those owners.
Tracy Collins, an architect, will be present to answer questions. And are there any questions of the applicant or discussion among the board? And are there any members of the public that wish to comment?
Is Tracy present? Okay.
I think we're good. I would now declare the public hearing closed. The second public hearing is a public hearing to review a request from Zach Fallon, owner, for approval of conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a roof-mounted solar energy system facing a street to be located at 703 Savannah Crossing Way in the commercial planned mixed-use zoning district. I now declare the public hearing open. I would ask the city clerk to enter exhibits.
Exhibit number 1 is affidavits of publication of notice of hearing, published in the St. Louis County on July 22nd, 2022, and on July 27th, 2022. Exhibit number 2 is typewritten notice of hearing and corrected notice, posted at the municipal center, on the city's website, on the subject property, and mailed to property owners within 300 feet of subject property, with a list of those owners attached. And exhibit number 3 is bill number 2245.
And I believe Mr. Fallon, the owner, will be present to answer questions. I will comment, I was out of town at the last P&Z meeting, but this was passed. I don't remember the exact vote, but it was, you at the meeting? Was it unanimous?
It was very thoughtful discussion, and it did pass.
Unanimously or? Okay.
6 to
I think it was unanimously.
Okay.
6 to
6-0, great, thank you. Among the board, are there any questions of the applicant or discussion? And are there any members of the public that wish to comment? And therefore, I declare the public hearing closed. Just appointments. I'm appointing Kathleen Romay to Ward 1 position on the Parks and Trails Commission. I seek a motion and a second to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Secondly, is to appoint Paula Snyder to an at-large position on the Parks and Trails Commission. I seek a motion and second to approve.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Also, I just want to announce my intent to reappoint the expired members of the commission structure en masse per the distributed list in the board's packet. I also am announcing my intent to appoint Babette Miners, Ward 2, to the Public Works Commission. At this time, I would like to ask the board's opportunity to provide reports on their commission, if they so desire. Alderman Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to inform the community that in the month of August, we will not be holding a Public Works Commission meeting as previously reported in our July meeting. So not this month, so I anticipate we will be meeting in September. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Is it okay if I report on the task force for the veterans?
Sure.
First responders, right?
Absolutely.
Not. Okay, the task force did meet twice last week. And we were looking at the projected cost opinion for the project that we have. It came in significantly greater than what we initially had hoped for. And we know we have a great project. We're all very excited. We have gotten input from many of the stakeholders involved with this. We're looking forward to going back with SWT to have a better look at individual costs. We are committed to getting this done in the best way, but we do need a little more detail with the price points, and we look forward. Ms. Nixon will be back from her vacation, I believe by the end of the week, so we'll be following up with that later. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very worthy project. The details will get worked out.
Can I just add one
Oh,
thing?
you're done.
Okay. What we believe we have is a Cadillac project. And it does meet the standards of town and country, as opposed to a Ford. I just wanted to say, I had a little blue Ford Pinto years ago. It started every time I turned the key. But we're really excited about it, and we just have to get this done in the right way for town square, for town and country.
We will. Thank you for all the work you've done on that. Alderman Weezand.
Thank you. The Police Fire EMS Commission will be meeting next Tuesday, the 16th at 4:30. We do have a presentation regarding the major case squad, and we want to attend. Should be a good meeting.
Alderman Perot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one comment on planning and zoning. The Woods Mill Center development has been continued to September.
Thank you. And I believe, Mr. Sheldon, you do not have a report. We were scheduled for a financial audit report from Clifton Larson Allen, but their rep, I believe his spouse just had a baby, and so he will not be here tonight. We will have that rescheduled. All right, next, Chief Cavins. I would, it's a thrill to see all your officers here tonight, and
They're thrilled to see all of you, Mayor, especially you, sir.
I Had trouble with that one, but welcome and take over.
All right, Mayor, Board of Aldermen, thank you for the opportunity this evening. As you all are aware, on Tuesday, June 14th, we responded to numerous 911 calls reporting shots fired on the subject line in the road on South Outer 40 at the entrance to Delmar Gardens Village West. Tonight, I will be recognizing several members of our police staff, 2 Ladue police officers, and 2 civilians for their individual and collaborative responses, teamwork, courage, and leadership and skills during this incident. Over the course of the 6 days following the shooting, over 33 original lead reports were investigated, numerous hours of camera footage reviewed, 32 recorded interviews conducted, and constant coordination took place with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Marshals Service. Because of the aggregation of all these attributes, the primary suspect was soon identified, arrested, and subsequently charged. From the first 911 call until the suspect was arrested, all involved were committed in bringing closure to the victim and his family. The totality of their actions inspired me as I observed their commitment and loyalty they have to this city. Mayor Ream, would you mind joining Lieutenant Wilkie up front? So the first awards that will be given is the Chief's Letters of Commendation. So if Detective Sergeant Jeff McNutt, Corporal Ronnie Nicoletti, Officer Dustin Brainerd, Detective Katie Exline, and Detective Jason Sapienza, please join the Lieutenant and the Mayor, please. Mayor Ream, Board of Aldermen, citizens, in brief, Corporal Nicoletti is recognized for his management and coordination skills to the initial response. Sergeant McNutt for his leadership during the labor-intensive investigation. Officer Brainerd for his compassion and skills responding to the incident and swift actions in rendering aid to our victim. Detective Sapienza and Detective Exline for their work ethic and tenacity during the investigation. Along with the certificate, these officers will receive green bars to be worn on their Class A uniforms as well. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you, everybody. So the next award will be the Chief's Unit Award of Excellence. I'd like to have the members of the Special Response Unit and Community Engagement Unit join the Lieutenant and Mayor, please. The Chief's Unit Award of Excellence is awarded to the officers of the Special Response Unit and Community Engagement Unit, and they include Officers Alex Fluger, Danny Palmer, Josh Hamill, Dustin Yark, Eric Diaz, and Jeffrey Rowland. The members of these units are being awarded for their unprecedented teamwork and commitment to this investigation. These officers adjusted schedules, readily accepted investigative assignments, and were flexible in maintaining and supporting the Patrol Division, who, Mayor Ream and Board of Aldermen, I will add, the Patrol Division all this time continued to keep the city safe and respond to almost 400 calls for service during the investigation period. So these awards of excellence are presented to the Special Response Unit and the Community Engagement Unit. Thanks, Phil.
Good work. Good work.
The next award is the Chief's Award of Excellence. If I could have the Ladue Detective Jennifer Hendricks, and in the absence of the Ladue Detective Sergeant Brian Lucas, if I could have Captain Brian Diekman, the Acting Chief of Ladue, please join us. These Chiefs Award of Excellence is awarded to the new Detective Sergeant Brian Lucas and Detective Jennifer Hendricks for their teamwork, skills, and unconditional support to the Town and Country Police Department. I'd like everybody to know that these two detectives were on scene within 30 minutes of the original call that we received and remained throughout assisting our agency for the next several days. I think it's also important for the board and for the mayor to understand that while I was on scene, the chief called me directly and said, "What do you need, Cavens? We're on our way." So it shows a great teamwork that we have, not only throughout the St. Louis County region, but especially with our WCDC partners. So these Chiefs Award of Excellence are to Detective Sergeant Brian Lucas and Detective Jennifer Hendricks. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, and probably the most important of this evening, if I could get Miss Kelly Vargas, and is Mr. Christopher Hayes in the room? Sir, if you could join the mayor and Lieutenant Wilkie. The citizen service citations, the citizen service citations are being presented to Ms. Kelly Vargas and Mr. Christopher Hayes for their selfless acts of courage reacting to the unknown volatile situation that they experienced on the evening of June 14th. For everyone's understanding, these two individuals actually saw the situation unfold in front of their face along the roadway of South Outer 40 in front of Delmar Gardens Villas West, and without hesitation jumped in, called 911, and began rendering aid to the victim. So their service to our community, the service to the victim, the aid that they provided to our victim, by no stretch of the imagination was absolutely vital to saving the victim's life. So for their courageous acts of selflessness, I award these citizen service citations to Ms. Kelly Vargas and Mr. Christopher Hayes. I'll just make one last introduction because it was unknown to me, but I'm honored to have just been told that our victim's mother, Miss Tamika Carbon, is in the chambers. Thank you, ma'am, for coming to speak.
Thanks, Chief, that was great. I would like to second the fact that those citizens just jumped right in there. That is not completely the norm anymore. Sometimes it's easier to look the other way. And also, I think it says a lot about the respect that Chief Cadence is held in by the other police chiefs in the county, that they wanted to hurry up and get over here and help, because that's the kind of respect that the chief has. So thank you very much. Thanks to all you guys and ladies. You do just a wonderful job for our city, and I can speak for the board and for all our citizens in general. We're extraordinarily appreciative of it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I want to let them get back to work. That's good.
We're not paying overtime. All right, new business. Resolution number R04-2022 is a resolution authorizing the application for transportation alternatives block grant for the Topping Road Pedestrian Improvements Project, Phase 2A. My understanding, this is a no-risk refundable application fee. I think the fee is about $2,000 and change. So that if we don't get it, we get our $2,000 and change back. And it's a 65-35 max with us putting up 35%. I seek a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion or amendment? All in favor? Next is a bill number 22-43, an ordinance I seek a sponsor for the directors. I thought the board as a whole, and I will, without objection, the city clerk read the bill for the first time.
Bill number 2243 is an ordinance authorizing a contract with St. Louis County, Missouri for participation in St. Louis County Municipal Court for mental health court or other specialty courts and programs.
Bill number 22-43 is continued to the meeting for Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next is bill number 22-44, seeking the sponsors, perhaps Aldermen and Hughes.
Yes.
Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2244 is an ordinance approving a conditional use and authorizing a conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a pool house located at 15 Clayton Hills Lane in the city of Town and Country.
Bill number 22-44 is continued to the meeting of Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next, bill number 22-45, the seek a sponsor for the bill, perhaps Alderman Mortman and Francisco. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2245, conditional use and authorizing a conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a roof-mounted solar energy system facing a street located at 703 Savannah Crossing Way in the city of Town and Country.
Thank you. Bill number 22-45 is continued to the meeting of Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next, bill number 22-46, I would think sponsored as the board as a whole. And without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2246 is an ordinance accepting the bid and authorizing an agreement with Gamma Tree Experts for the 2022 Fall Branch Chipping Program and amending the 2022 budget by increasing a general fund expenditure account for program expenses and appropriating funds to cover the increase.
Thank you. Bill number 22-46 is continued to the meeting of Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next, bill number 22-47, seek a sponsor for the bill, perhaps. Thank you. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2247 is an ordinance accepting the bid and authorizing an agreement with Ideal Landscape Construction for the Drace Park Playground Construction Project and amending the 2022 budget by increasing an expenditure account in the Parks and Stormwater Fund and appropriating funds to cover the increase.
Thank you. I would invite Jay with SWT to the podium to give a presentation. Before he starts, I just want to mention that no motions are appropriate until the second reading, but a light discussion / feedback is okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. And I have a few slides just to remind everyone of kind of the project and where we're going and how we got to where we're at. So this project actually started last year with the Parks grant to do the master plan for all of the programs throughout the park system. And then from there, Drace Park was identified as the priority playground for replacement. At that time, we had also solicited proposals and design solutions for the playground. For the playground equipment itself, and selected a vendor at that time. Then applied for the design and construction grant in the fall of last year. Received that and have been working sort of through the spring and the summer to finalize and bid the project. So the intent for Drace was to have more of a nature theme to replace the existing playground, several rooms of play, and provide the opportunity for maybe a future splash pad or water play area as well. So the image up on the screen now are the components that are in the playground. They'll be situated a little bit differently, and we have a plan that shows that here in a second. But the three main components in the foreground is a swing bay with 3 play elements in it, 2 sort of standard belt swings, APA inclusive swing, which is the green one in the middle, and then the tot swing, so sort of the bucket swing. And then the foreground, the one closest to us, is a saucer swing, which is also an inclusive play element in this playground. And then in the background are two components. The furthest one, the tallest tower, is a 5 to 12-year-old play element made out of wood, a wood structure with an internal play element and then an exterior slide. And then the middle sort of element is the 2 to 5 piece, which has a little more of ground play and balance and a smaller slide, so you can kind of see the pieces here again as well. So the plan itself, as it was bid and as it was intended to be constructed, takes the existing playground area, and you can kind of see it shadowed in the back on the green. On the upper sort of right, you can see the header around the old playground, the seat wall, and then at the bottom, sort of lower left, you can see. So for the most part, we're fitting within the same area the playground was, and pushing and pulling a little bit. But we're also taking a lot of that surfacing that was there, that is there currently, away, and really trying to allow over time to plant more landscape, put more trees in there. So instead of feeling like one big open playground area, it'll feel like 3 rooms of play. And so you'll be able to walk through the center sidewalk or sort of meander through the playground areas themselves. So to get to each room and then have some softness with landscape in between, and over time then connect to the nature explorer area that's in the woodland there, just to the east of this playground area. So so you can see here in the plan, the 3 elements are split up a little bit differently than what was in that last plan. Closest to the pavilion is the 2 to 5 play area now. So for visibility of parents and access to that area, the middle is the swing. So we want to put those swings in the center so you can get to it from both of the play areas. And then furthest to the south is the larger climbing structure that has the slides and the internal play. We wanted to kind of tuck that back in the tree line a bit and get a little further away. So that's the design. The design side of it, again, sort of the same components as to where they sit within the play. So we did bid the project, and we received 3 bids. All 3 of them came in over what we had identified in the grant over a year ago. And when we kind of run the numbers, where we come out is we're roughly about 30% over where we had budgeted for and planned for it in the cost opinion. A lot of that is in some of the site elements that have just gone up in price from the contractor standpoint. We actually had one contractor show up to the pre-bid, was going to bid it up until the last minute, was even sitting out here filling out his bid form and just couldn't get numbers from his seller in the bid. So we know it's tough bid climate right now. So in the end, kind of the red line at the bottom there, we're roughly 30% over. We're about $122,000 over kind of what has been budgeted, the 406. We're at 565. We have already started to work with the contractor a bit on what we might be able to do to bring some of this cost down. We've talked to the playground vendor. So the playground equipment actually went up 9% within the last 6 weeks. We were holding until we got the bids back before we finalized the PO. And so that went up. Not the manufacturer, but the vendor has offered to take $5,000, so absorb $5,000 of that cost increase. The biggest one that we have is with the playground surfacing. We did go back in and made some areas smaller, and we've been able to take about $24,000 out of that cost already. We can keep working with the contractor on trying to bring some things down, but as it sits right now, based on the bid, we're at that 565, 26 for the full project, including professional fees. We're at 528, 977 for the contracted work through the playground manufacturers as well as the general contractor. So we think we can get down closer to that 92 over, but it's like, so that's kind of where we stand right now on pricing. And then from a schedule timeline standpoint, part of what we had talked about going into the bidding and we talked through with some contractors is right now, the intent would be to award the contract with the additional funding from Parks and Stormwater, issue a notice to proceed in August, But we've given the contractor the flexibility on when they want to start to best fit their schedule. Right now, we know the playground equipment won't be delivered until after the first of the year. So as far as construction starting, it will start after the first of the year, with the intent of having it wrapped up by late spring, early summer to be able to use it come spring, summer of 2023. So that's the timeline right now. They may start sooner than that to get the site demoed and cleared and prepped and ready to go. So when the equipment comes, they can put it in, because the equipment installation doesn't have a lot of weather dependency other than just not frozen ground. Once they pour concrete and pour footings, they can put the equipment and the surfacing in. So they may start sooner, but we would work with them on what that schedule would look like.
Alderman Holman.
Do you by chance have a photo of the log swing with you in your presentation?
I don't believe it's in here. That is one of the items that was in the original bid that we ended up taking it out and putting more money into the tower to make a bigger tower element. So the log swing is not part of the final design in the playground. So we have the 3-bay swing, and we have a larger tower piece in lieu of having the swing, the log swing.
So just to ensure I heard you correctly, so you removed that and but put some of that $23,000 into a larger tower? Okay.
Correct.
And I assume it goes without saying that none of those swings or towers are involved in any litigation, class action lawsuits across the country for kids being injured or anything like that.
To the best of our knowledge,
Okay.
we can confirm that with the manufacturer, but I do not.
Okay. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. What, I'm assuming there is a standard floor surface material.
Correct. So this will be a synthetic turf playground surface is what it's going to be. So like a football field, it looks kind of like that, but it's made for a playground.
Solid.
It's soft,
not
yeah.
Crumbly, I mean, it's not the.
It's not loose. It's not a loose fill. It's a solid, yeah, it's a solid.
What's
material.
the life expectancy of safety for kids?
I think-
That's-
I believe they say it's around 15 to 20 years. Maybe we can get a confirmation from them on that. But yeah, it's more, I think, the padding underneath that becomes what wears out more than the surfacing itself usually.
Alderman Morton.
I'm just curious, for the future, like where would the splash pad go if we have funds in the future?
Yeah, so the thought is that it would go kind of in this area right here, and then would either pipe under the walk, and we were talking about having the contractor put a sleeve in now so that we could run a drain line in the future or whatever we need to do. So the thought is it goes either there or it might go just opposite the swings. Let's see if that resolved itself here. So it's a big image. So we go kind of between there, and the intent is it's on the sidewalk side of the playground, in either of those two locations, and then it would drain, everything sort of drains to the east and to the north is kind of where it goes, so it would pipe to a point and then daylight and flow into the drainage. So, yeah, kind of either nestle right in here, or maybe, depending on the scale of it, it might sit in. We also wanted to keep it a little bit further from the 2 to 5 area, so that it's not right up there where one of the little ones are.
Alderman Weaver.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposal wouldn't start until spring now,
Construction,
for construction.
potentially, yeah.
Do you foresee that's picking up, when do you see that picking up where inventory will start coming back? And the reason I ask is how will that impact, obviously we're talking about the Longview playground, how does that impact, or does it impact that process moving forward with that grant application?
It won't impact that, so with the grants, you're allowed to have 2 open grants at one time, so this would, Longview, there would just be a crossover there in the spring, in the summer, where Longview is funded and we're still completing Grace.
Okay.
Then it wouldn't impact it.
Okay.
Alderman Perot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you move down the other direction? There.
Yeah, oop, jumped on me, I'm gonna get you back there.
Is this just an artist rendering, or is the walkways and such actually going to be allocated?
It's just a rendering. It'll all be flush with the ground. So it'll be flush to the ground and then have a flush concrete header around the edge of it. So, and then it will go right up against the sidewalk. So it'll be flush with the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bill number 2240-47 is continued in meeting on Monday, August 22nd, 2022 for the second reading and consideration. Next, number 7 is a resolution, number R05-2022, a resolution authorizing the Director of Parks and Recreation to apply for a municipal park grant for a replacement playground in Longview Farm Park. I seek a motion. Is there a second? Second, thank you. I would invite Jay to give us a little update on this also.
Sure. Happy to. So similar setup to this one, only we don't have obviously the bid numbers in, but just wanted to give everybody enough kind of a review of how we got here in the master plan and then where we are currently. So in the master plan for Longview was a little different than Drace. The idea for Longview was twofold. One of an adventure play type of play system, and then two, to also focus on providing some inclusive elements more than just sort of the basic accessible play elements. And I guess there was something a third as well, and that was to try to engage the hillside that's just to the south of the playground now, kind of between the Longview Farmhouse and then the playground. So those were the three goals. And the idea was to keep it in as close to the same footprint as it currently is, having minimal impact on the trees and the green space around the playground. So actually, I'll jump forward to the plan and then come back to that. So to this point, we have sort of identified a design as well as put out a request for proposals from playground manufacturers, similar to how we did for Drace, to get some design ideas and design thoughts on what we could do. And those came back several weeks ago. So the existing playground, you can kind of see there's a corner over here, and it bumps out here again and runs down, and then it comes across and kind of this big sort of square here. So we are staying relatively within that footprint, and then we are engaging the hillside here, and then expanding the playground area a little bit on the flatter side, and playing on the hill as well on this back end. So we really want to try to activate that slope. And there's a series of play elements that make up the playground on the hill, and then sort of the 5 to 12 bigger kid play area here on sort of the east side of the playground. Coming in directly from the would be the 2 to 5 and some of the inclusive specific play elements. And then we do have a larger swing and play element here as well. So swings are very popular. We didn't want to lose swings, but they do take up a big footprint. So we wanted to put them in the best we can. So this is at least the preliminary design from the manufacturer at this point. There's still a lot of elements in here that we will work through with them. Nothing has been finalized or approved, but this was sort of their first pass with a few revisions. So we're kind of looking, the barn is over here, and you enter into the playground currently this way. So we're almost on the parking lot, kind of looking down. And similar to the rendering that we just showed for Drace, there's some artistic liberties taken by the manufacturer here. So they're showing maybe some concrete and different types of surfacing, some play elements that and even a raised edge here that we'll work through the details with them after the grant funding is in place and we work forward. But the idea is that there's a big sort of flat center area that's for the most part the existing playground, where we have some of the adventure play and some inclusive play elements. The 2 to 5 with several inclusive play elements, including an in-grade spinner, which I think we got a close-up of coming up. And then the swing area over here, and then the hillside play here as well. So they did a series
Go
of
back to that slide, just for 1 second, because I'm sort of a stickler on punctuation and spelling.
Oh.
And hay bales is BALES.
Oh, sure, so I will let them know that. I take credit for my misspellings, I will let them know.
Thank you.
Yep, we will. And these will, not only will we continue to refine these, but over the timeline. So the timeline, I'll jump ahead a little bit for this, would be the grant application, the end of this month, awarded ideally, I think in October, early November. So starting the first of the year, we would get into the design documents and continue to work with Parks and Trails on refining this playground and getting the pieces in. But, so, yeah, they took a background, obviously not a photo from the park. But you can start to see lots of nets and it's adventure play from the standpoint of it's not prescribed or prescriptive play. It doesn't tell you climb these stairs, go down this slide, go through this tube. And we'll work with them on colors, we'll work with them on maybe finding a few other pieces that are, if we want to make it a little more softer and fit more into the feel of Longview. But the intent is there. I think some of these sort of sculpture play pieces will find their way out and we'll repurpose those dollars to do something a little bit different. But obviously they were playing on the theme of Longview and the horses. But so we will continue to refine. Our intent is to get the most play value and the aesthetic of fitting into the park out of the design. So, but we gave them a budget and we wanted something to start with for the grant application. And this, I think we received 7 or 8 different design submittals. A lot of really great creative thought, some good elements. Parks and Trails met, I think, several times to work through them and talk through it. And we've had one follow-up, as I mentioned, with the manufacturer since then. The manufacturer is Hutchinson, they're a local St. Louis company, and those products are all manufactured in Missouri as well. So it's always a nice little bonus to have. So just a few thoughts. So this is that really quick. This is one of those inclusive play elements that we talked with them about. This is, your sort of merry-go-round, but it's actually designed to be built into the ground so it's flush with the surfacing. So you can walk or roll, you can easily get onto that. You don't have to be lifted up or climb up onto it. It's not elevated, it sits flush with the ground. So those are the types of elements we're going to continue to work with them on. From a budget standpoint, a lot of these are conceptual numbers. The only thing that we really have as a hard number right now is at least the budget that we gave the playground company design to, and that's the $175,000 for the play equipment. Everything else we've just sort of used off of takeoffs of where we are now with the concept design, and then some of the pricing that we got on Drace to sort of true where some of those numbers were. So as we're looking at it right now, the total project cost we're estimating to be around $575,000. The grant has actually gone up this year. It was $520,000 previously, so the city is now eligible for $465,000. It was $420,000. It's now $465,000. So we would ask for the full amount in the grant application. And then currently, if all these numbers held true and played out, the city match then, including the one item that the city has to split with the grant commission, which is landscape. So right now we're going on $2,500 worth of landscape, a few new trees. So that's a split, and then the additional sort of difference in the budget would make it about an 80-20 project. So the grant would pay 80% of the project, and the city would be paying about 20%, which is pretty close to how Drace kind of played out. So it'd be fairly similar to Drace. We're probably a little less site work here. It's a little smaller footprint that we're working in, but we have more playground equipment, and we have a bigger footprint for play, but a smaller site footprint, if that makes sense. So we have more money in the playground equipment and the surfacing than we did in Drace, and we think we'll have less. We're holding a good site number right now. We're hoping we can draw that down once we get a design side of it. So from a budgeting standpoint, this is where we're sitting right now. The intent would be to request that full grant. And then timeline, hopefully we'll be able to accelerate it a little bit more than Drace, but we would produce design documents in early 2023, put it out to bid in June, July of 2023, give notice to proceed in August, and by the end of the year, have the playground complete. That would be the intended. Some of it may push over to the spring, depending on how fall and winter turn, but the intent would be to try to have that completed by the end of the year if possible.
Thanks. Any discussion?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Gentlemen? I was around when we developed the parks the first time, and I was a real proponent of that soft, squishy base. How is this similar to that, or is it more? Because sometimes I've seen where it's worn in certain areas. Does this have better longevity when it comes to wear and tear,
I don't know about on the longevity side, I don't know specifically. I will say it's easier to repair and patch. So with that rubber surfacing, you have to cut it out, you come back in, you patch it, it's sort of an obvious, stands out.
Okay.
With this turf, you cut it, but you just put a new piece in so it fits right in, so it's less noticeable when you
Okay.
have to repair it. I would guess they're probably, from a use standpoint, a durability standpoint, I think they're pretty similar. It's just from a maintenance standpoint, this I think is a little easier to maintain.
and is this something that city staff could maintain, or is this something where you have more of a specialist come in to be able to say, we need to cut out this area and replace?
Typically, it's done through an installer, so it would be
Okay.
you would contract to have
Okay.
that done.
And last question is, do you know where this surface may be installed that I could go and walk it?
Yeah, so it is in projects of ours where we've used it. There's in T. Meyer Park, which is in the city of St. Anne.
Okay,
Is a fairly new installation of it. Also out in St. Charles County at, I think we used it both, at O'Day Park, which is in O'Fallon, and then Veterans Tribute Park, which is in Weldon Spring.
okay,
So both of those use this material on their playground surfacing. And I could send you some photos of those projects too, if you want to see what it looks like installed, as well as if you want to check it out. So,
okay,
and both of those, the O'Day, so Veterans is the oldest. It's been probably 3 or 4 years. O'Day is like two years old, and then the T. Meyer Park just went in about 18 months ago. So it's
great. I'd kind of like to go in.
Yep.
See it, touch it, walk on it.
Yeah,
that type of
yeah.
thing.
And we have, and even that's, on the pricing side, we've only priced out and asked contractors on Longview for the equipment. The surfacing would be separate. We bid that out separate as part of the project. So that, if we wanted to think about something different there, we could. That's not been finalized. A lot of that pricing has been finalized.
Okay. I'll do a road trip, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Alderman Francisco.
Yeah,
Thank
Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. I just wanted to say thank you for coming and presenting to us. One thing I just wanted the board to know, when we had our Parks and Trails meeting, as Jay said, there was 8 or 9 different proposals. And so we really did vet these well, because this one that we selected, Miracle Hutchinson, it seemed that we got more bang for our buck. They had more play elements that they were willing to give us for the same price. And that was one thing that we really took into consideration, especially with the parents on our board with young children. The more we could put in that footprint, the better. Some of the other playground manufacturers, we were not gonna get very much for the 175.
Yeah.
So, again, that was very well vetted and why we came up with these folks.
Great, great.
Thank you.
And you.
Also, I would like to make a motion. I move to continue the resolution to the meeting of August 22nd, given that the second reading for the Drace Playground project will occur at that meeting, and the timing of the 2 projects are bound together.
Second for that? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, bill number 22-48. I would seek a sponsor for the bill. Alderman Holman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Without objection, would the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2248 is an ordinance approving supplemental agreement number 1 to the professional services agreement with Horner and Schifrin for additional construction inspection and administration services for the Topping Road resurfacing and pedestrian improvements project.
Thank you. And if I could ask Mr. Sheldon, is that, there's no appropriation needed for this, isn't that correct?
No, there is money available.
Thank you. Bill number 22-48 is continued to the meeting on Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Now, Jay, we're going to go back to our usual craft. Bill number 22-49, Traps Board as a whole, without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2249 is an ordinance readopting Chapter 120 Code of Ethics of Title I of the City of Town and Country Municipal Code.
Bill number 22-49 is continued to the meeting on Monday, August 22nd, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next is the warrant list. This is to confirm the unanimous approval of the 7/25/22 fax meeting warrant list in the amount of $866,674.81. I seek a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, to approve the 8/8/22 regular meeting warrant list in the amount of $305,050.00. Certainly $500,000 better than the previous one. Seek a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment?
I have a question, Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Okay, on page 2 of page 9, Eureka Auto Collision, we had an accident. There was, what happened?
It's one of our cars got ran into while we used.
Really? Wow, okay.
Most
The person
importantly,
had
was
insurance?
anyone hurt?
No, sir.
Perfect.
They had insurance?
Correct, yes, I believe.
Okay, great, just wondering what happened, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Notice publication of the tax levy rate. The Board of Aldermen will provide direction on the potential property tax levy rates for the purpose of publishing a public hearing notice. I would invite Mr. Shelton to the podium to provide the board with some information.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the board, the staff will be publishing a public hearing notice to set the 2022 property tax rate. The board is able to set the rate every 2 years, even numbered years. The public hearing and first reading will be held September the 12th, with the second reading and adoption of the tax rate September 26th. The public hearing notice will state the proposed rate. As you're all aware, the Ways and Means Commission recommended a property tax rate of 23 cents. Our current rate is 0 and has been for many years. As discussed extensively at your workshop last week, staff concurs that future dependable revenue source is needed, especially with the cost of our road improvements, our necessary infrastructure that's upcoming. So as a result, however, of the $2 million in ARPA funds, that $1 million we have received and the other $1 million we will be receiving, in addition to the $1 million that the city received 2 weeks ago when we closed on the sale of the property to BJC, we feel that the projections show that you do have dependable revenue up until 2024. So the staff again is looking for the recommendation from the board, what you would set your rate at 2022. You will again revisit this rate in 2024. Again, this is just what we advertise. We still have discussion, debate at your upcoming September meetings.
I seek a motion to direct the city clerk to publish the hearing notice with the specified proposed tax levy rate. Alderman Weezy.
I'd make a motion to keep the tax rate at 0 cents for 2022.
I would seek a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some comments, and I will repeat some of what Mr. Sheldon just commented on, just to put it in place. So our Ways and Means Commission last met on July 12th. At that time, a discussion on then budget projections with our current model with expenditures exceeding revenues prompted a motion and vote to recommend the Board of Aldermen initiate the process to move forward for the city to impose a property tax of 23 cents per $100 assessed residential value. Long-term projections over the past 2 years have consistently shown a downward trend with fund reserves approaching and falling below the 50% reserves benchmark in or toward fiscal years 2023, 2024, and beyond, and possibly beyond. Well, it would be beyond. As discussed at the Board of Aldermen workshop last week, the most recent revenue source projections suggest the city could continue another year without a property tax by choosing to use the one-time ARPA 2.2 million for city operations along with expected new business and sales tax. Again, Mr. Shelton included the 1 million for the little piece of land by Woodbridge. This practice, though, of using one-time monies for city operations is not considered best practice in any budgeting. However, I believe this speaks to the urgency that we as a city face following this current model with this instability of our city revenues along with constantly increasing expenditures. I believe the city will greatly benefit whenever there is a stable revenue source to allow for necessary planning of infrastructure and staffing. In short, a public hearing on a $0 property tax recommendation at best is a gift. We're lucky. We're lucky that we had someone want to buy a little strip of land for $1 million. We're lucky that we received or 2 checks from the feds to of the $2.2 million. That has nothing to do with our stability as a city and have concerted revenue streams. So I think this is very serious. I think that as we and if we continue to keep spending as everyone always expects to spend, for one thing, the residents, the public will never get the point that we have significant issues to deal with. And if this goes for zero tax this year, we talked about sharing this message 2 years ago, and not much got done in 2 years to share the message. So we're going to have to do a much better job at informing the residents and see what happens in 2 years. Thank you.
Alderman Roll.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for our city administrator with regard to the ARPA funds. Have we, is there an established policy or guidelines on what you may or may not spend these funds on or for?
So the use is very broad. Mr. Gully can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is lost revenue and you can use it for general expenses of the city. The Ways and Means Commission did recommend that we do spend it to offset some of your annual $4 million fire contract, which is Absolutely an eligible expense.
An appropriate expense.
Is it appropriate and
Because
eligible?
those funds we were able to capture because of overtime, because of public safety needs, living through this pandemic with all of the paperwork and requirements you had to fill out to actually capture those funds. Now this can offset some of those expenses that we experienced in 2020 and 2021.
And the federal guidelines allow you to offset the lost revenue to spend on a variety of eligible expenses, really.
Thank you.
Alderman Morton.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the city staff for continuing to look at ways to be creative and to apply for grants and funds, just like our beautiful playgrounds here that we're paying a lot less than full price in doing this. From the citizen standpoint of understanding where we are, we have been zero. We are the only municipality around our neighboring areas that does not have a property tax. We are the only municipality that does not either have their own fire department or a part of a fire district, which both require money. We've been very fortunate with our sales tax and having 50% reserves is what kept us afloat during this last pandemic and according to do that. Knowing we're getting right back to that, that number and budgeting up, obviously 2 years isn't going to be anything, but from the standpoint of we have to start making some investments back in to our staff, to our facilities, and just overall the budget in order for us to continue to maintain that level of service, those amenities that we offer, Clayton Trail, Trace Park, Longview. We've added to those over years. We have to continue. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that.
Alderman Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to the conversation, I think we need to be very careful. I totally agree that we need to get the message out to our citizens. But I think we all know that the roads are going to need significant repairs and do need repairs. That fund every year runs out of money and we end up transferring from other accounts. So that money has to come from someplace. In addition to that, we've received, obviously, that we talked about one-time funds that have fell into our lap, which is really wonderful. But we have to be very careful as a body, a leadership body, not to push an operational funding problem down the road so far that it leaves it to the next group of leaders to have to deal with our problem. This is our problem today. We know that we're spending more than the revenue that's being generated coming into the city. So, yeah, although it's never popular to have a property tax, and this may not be the right time, maybe 2024 is, but we shouldn't push it off too far.
And I would agree with that. One of my concerns is we haven't had a property tax since 1996. And I think the perception that I worry about constituents is that, okay, we haven't needed one for 26 years, and you got $3 million worth of ARPA money, and now you need a property tax on top of that right now. I don't think that will be a very easy discussion. And I feel, and Joanne, Mr. Jolly can correct me, but from my recollection is that relative to our 50% balance we have to keep, we're pretty solid through 2024 at the minimum, if that's correct.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that we won't, I absolutely think that's something we have to address. I hope that other ways of revenue will happen, but if they don't, definitely in 2024, we will need a property tax. But I think that if you publish something at 10% or 10 cents or 23 cents right now, even if we don't vote it in next month, I think it will cause a lot of confusion and consternation. And I personally think right now, the 0% to me makes the most sense.
I think
Yes, yes.
I agree with the mayor, but I also think that, timing is everything, and with inflation where it is, gas prices where they are, a volatile stock market, it's gonna be a hard sell, I think, to tell folks, we've got $3 million. We have REI coming in, Sephora, 2 new revenue streams of retailers. We don't know what they're gonna produce for us. I think the timing is just not ideal, and 2024, if it's necessary then, absolutely. But right now, I just think in the current environment, it's gonna be a hard push.
I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote on this pending motion.
And just to remind everyone where we are, we're directing me to publish the tax rate at 0, levy rate of 0. Alderman Weezehan?
Aye.
Alderman Holman?
Aye.
Alderman Hughes?
Aye.
Alderman Mortland?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Nay.
Alderman Francisco?
Aye.
And Alderman Perot.
Aye.
It carries 6-1.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the discussion. Great on by everyone. Under other business, I have nothing, and we'll caution in the Aldermen that we are going to close session. So, they have nothing else. But if they do, go ahead. Otherwise, I seek a motion and second to close the meeting pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statute of Missouri to discuss legal actions and attorney-client privilege communications. Any discussion or amendment?
I need a motion on that in a second.
So moved.
Second.
And we'll call vote.
Alderman Weezehan?
Aye.
Alderman Hughes?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Francisco?
Aye.
Alderman Holman?
Aye.
Alderman Perot?
Aye.
And Alderman Mortland.
Aye.
It carries unanimously, and I'll note for the record, the board will not return to open meeting.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Good night.